Omicron seems to be milder compared to the other variants, and this is backed by country level population data. Welcome back. So, last time, we discussed a study highlighting recent lab based evidence that supports the claim that the Omicron variant produces less severe COVID disease, which should translate to lesser hospitalizations and deaths. So, for this video, instead of critiquing and analyzing a research study, let's try to do a mini research study on our own. Our objectives for this video are as follows: to describe patterns of new COVID cases per country, to describe patterns of COVID related deaths per country, to analyze similarities and the differences between the patterns of new cases versus new deaths per country, especially during the Omicron surge, and to determine if the percentage of Omicron cases in a country is somewhat related to the pattern of new COVID cases and deaths. In short, we hope to understand if Omicron really produces milder disease compared to the other variants when looking at a country level population data. We will investigate 9 countries, 3 with Omicron cases of less than 50% of the total COVID case load, 3 with Omicron cases of greater than 80%, and 3 special case countries. So, except for the special case countries, the other countries were purposefully selected to try to represent both extremes of Omicron percentages, while making sure that these countries have significantly higher numbers of confirmed or sequenced Omicron cases. We'll do this because in some countries, while reporting up to 100% Omicron cases, for example, they only have a few dozen confirmed Omicron cases, which can be misleading. So, for the data and graphs that we will analyze for patterns, these were all taken from Worldometer, www.worldometers.info/coronavirus, while the data on Omicron percentage per country were taken from GISAID, www.gisaid.org/HCOV19-variants, and all data are updated as of January 2020, as of the recording of this video. For better visualization, I've overlain both graphs on top of each other. The graphs for COVID deaths are also quote unquote standardized to a height closest to the peaks of the graphs for new cases around the beta and delta waves, around the end of 2020 and mid 2021, respectively. So take note that the graphs on COVID deaths are vertically stretched and do not reflect actual death rates. Take note also that we remove the y-axis for all graphs because we don't really care about the absolute values. We only care about the patterns, which hopefully will reflect proportional changes. I also added a purely made up best guess start of Omicron surge marker for each country, but I don't really have the time and resources to do more research on when each country's Omicron surge actually started. Unless you want to sponsor me to do an actual study, like and subscribe for better research videos. So let's start our analysis. Let's start with special case country number 1, the so-called Omicron origin, South Africa. As of January 20, 98% of COVID cases within the past 4 weeks in South Africa are Omicron cases. But this is just based on about 243 confirmed Omicron cases. Looking at the two graphs, the pattern of COVID deaths closely resembles the pattern of new cases. That is, as new cases increase, deaths also increased proportionally, at least for the first 3 COVID waves before the Omicron surge. But during the Omicron surge, new cases rapidly increased, but COVID deaths remain low. It's also worth noting that South Africa may be seeing the end of their Omicron surge. The second country is Poland, which has the lowest Omicron case percentage among our listed countries, at less than 25%. So we may be assuming that they are still at their continued Delta variant phase, or at least an early Omicron surge. It is also worth noting that so far, all the peaks of the graphs for COVID deaths coincide with peaks for new cases, which is expected for a predominantly Delta variant-based wave. The next country is Turkey, with an Omicron case percentage of around 47%. Similar to South Africa, the graph for COVID deaths resembled the graph for new cases, even with a protracted increased number of cases and proportional number of deaths starting from the third and fourth quarter of 2021. Starting this year, 2022, Turkey seems to have started its Omicron journey with a rapid increase in their new cases. However, at this point, COVID deaths still remained relatively stable. Germany also reports a relatively low percentage of Omicron cases at about 48%. The country also seems to have a dual peak in cases since late last year to early this year, with one peak around early December 2021 and another peak which is ongoing at present. At this point, I'm assuming early November 2021 as the start of the Omicron surge, but I'm not really sure about this. So in any case, we can see that the COVID deaths increased slightly shortly after the proposed Omicron surge, but not proportional to the surge in new COVID cases. Now let's take a look at some countries dominated by the Omicron variant, starting with the United States. The country's graph for new cases show a very rapid increase in new cases brought about by Omicron starting around mid-December 2021. COVID deaths were also proportional to new cases prior to Omicron, but during the Omicron surge, COVID deaths increased slightly, but definitely proportionally far from the increase of new cases. A similar story to the US is Denmark, with Omicron exceeding 90% of the total COVID cases. But despite the rapid increase in new COVID cases, COVID deaths in Denmark also remain relatively low. In the United Kingdom, almost all of their new COVID cases are of the Omicron variant, with a surge starting at around mid-December 2021. However, the UK seems to have been battling the Delta wave for about 5 months, even prior to the Omicron surge. But regardless of variant, COVID deaths in the country seem to have been low, even during the Delta wave, continuing to the latest surge. Our next country is our second special case, India. India was chosen in this video since this country has suffered tremendously during its Delta wave back in the second quarter of 2021. As seen in the graphs, its Delta wave death spike is very much proportional to its new cases graph. However, during the Omicron surge, which probably started early this year, COVID deaths remain low. Our last country of analysis is the Philippines, chosen because it is near and dear to my heart. And with the country being close to my heart, you can also see that the pattern of COVID deaths look like ventricular tachycardia or torsade de pointe. Despite this weird pattern, we can see that COVID deaths during the Omicron surge also remained low. Take note that while the country reports 100% Omicron cases from the past month, these were only from 23 confirmed Omicron cases. Based on our analysis, the country is experiencing the super surge increases in new COVID cases due to Omicron seem to report lesser COVID deaths overall, especially when compared to the COVID deaths during the Beta and Delta waves. Of course, this analysis has a lot of limitations. There are a lot of other factors which can impact reporting of new COVID cases and deaths, including vaccination rates, ongoing public health and clinical strategies, the current status and improvements of the healthcare system, and data accuracy and timeliness, just to name a few. Like and subscribe so that I can afford to do real research. So that's it. From our analysis, it seems like the dominance of the Omicron variant in most countries, at the very least, contributes to declining COVID deaths, especially after the savage beating the world took from the Delta variant last year.